So this last brief session is kind of a nice follow-on from the keynote conversation this morning with Scott Whitaker from AdvaMed, and then it's a nice segue to a lot of the topics that we'll talk about tomorrow, which are more in the kind of commercialization side of focused ultrasound. So what I'm going to introduce right now is some of the work that the foundation is involved in really building relationships to advance advocacy of focused ultrasound. So in particular with some advocacy and trade organizations. And then Mark Carroll is going to talk to you about a specific partnership that we formed with the Medical Imaging and Technology Alliance. So as you know, the pathway from each new application and new idea in focused ultrasound is very long and complicated, and there's a lot of barriers and obstacles. And, many of these, they start with just funding and idea generation, but we feel that the field is kind of transitioning from where a lot of the basic science and those kind of early preclinical studies have been addressed with a lot of applications, but now we're entering this commercialization realm, and we're focusing on issues like regulatory approval, insurance reimbursement, really getting adoption of technology from physicians. And so those are some of the barriers that we're focusing a lot on these days. And the foundation, of course, in our drive to be a catalyst to advance this field, we really try to identify the barriers where we can help break them down and get rid of some of these obstacles or minimize the impact that they're having. And so in doing so, we try to position, we notice that there's this complex ecosystem of stakeholders within this whole device development process, and we're trying to position ourselves really at the nexus of those stakeholders and work with as many of those groups as possible to try to advance the technology. And so what I'm focusing on here is this kind of realm of advocacy and trade organizations and what they can really do for us if we partner with them to help advance focused ultrasound. So here's just a list of many of them. And I highlight the one on the top right, which you'll hear more from Mark Carroll, the Medical Imaging and Technology Alliance. And then you heard from AdvaMed this morning. But then there are others that we're working with as well, including the Consumer Technology Association. And you heard from Gary Shapiro, the CEO of that organization, yesterday. And so again, if we come to this chart of kind of all of these difficult areas, what can advocacy organizations help us with? Well, they can help us with regulatory approval for sure. We heard about that this morning. Definitely insurance reimbursement. Also things like the economic value proposition. We talked about that this morning. Advocacy with physicians and patients, and awareness and education. All of those things to ultimately lead to more widespread clinical adoption of the technology for a range of clinical indications. And so more specifically, these organizations all have strong relationships with FDA, CMS, legislators at the state and federal level, as well as specialty societies and other stakeholder groups. And then what you'll hear next from Mark is a focused ultrasound specific working group that we have developed or started at the Medical Imaging and Technology Alliance, which is allowing us to work on some very specific issues that are big challenges for at least a core group of our companies. And then we also have interest for similar type focused ultrasound specific efforts with other organizations, including AdvaMed and CTA, who you've heard from. So overall, I just wanted to let you know that the foundation is working hard to build relationships with all of these organizations, first to educate them on the potential of focused ultrasound, and then identify ways we can partner to move the field forward. And so if any of you, whether you're members of companies or clinicians, whoever, if you're interested in any of these efforts, you can feel free to contact me or other members of the foundation to learn more about what we're doing and how we can help you. So that's it for me. And I think I'll just go ahead and invite Mark to come up and talk to you more about the MIDA partnership.
May I have a comment? Jessica?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I think that it has to be a two-pronged approach, one from the lobbying side and the other one from the patient side. Because if there is no demand from patients, nothing will happen. That's the reality of politics.
And we're also doing a lot to partner with patient organizations, which is not mentioned here, but that's another big effort of what we're trying to do. So educating more patients about the technology through their kind of home organizations and ways we can partner with them too.